So the first topic that we ever really went over, I think, well, I don't know if it was the very first topic, but it was definitely in the first episode, is what is it? What entitles Monopoly into being a classic?
Yes.
So I thought it would be interesting for our 2-year anniversary to kind of revisit that. Obviously, it's going to be a little slightly different. This is what makes a game a classic. Now, obviously, we're talking in the realm of board games. We're not going to move on to video games unless you guys want to for some reason. But we're going to talk about what makes a game a classic, and we can kind of spill over into like the classics currently and why we think they should be there, not whatever. So, Eric, we're going to start with you.
Sure.
Put you in the spotlight.
All right.
What is your biggest thing? If you think of a game as a classic, what do you think makes a classic? And maybe from a current perspective, what do you think is going to make a game classic from 20 years from now? Kind of deal.
Okay. So for me, I think for something to be classic, it might not be classic to, Matt. So I think it's subjective. What might be classic for me might not be classic for you. But for it to fall into that kind of category, I think it has to have a couple of these things here. It has to be a great game for its time. So say Monopoly is a classic right now. Maybe it's not considered a great game but for its time, it was probably a great game.
Well, let's stop you there and say that it didn't have much competition. And so I think that classic games of old, right, they're classic because they were like literally the 10 games that were out. Not really, but for the most part, they were. So I think a classic being developed today is going to be a lot tougher than a classic being developed in the past.
Well, that's very true. But besides that, it also has to bring some unique mechanisms or a unique or good story or even a good theme.
It's interesting to you say that because what has really mimicked Monopoly well?
Yeah, nothing so far.
It's kind of interesting. Have you ever think of that?
There's not been a Monopoly killer.
Like Catan is like the closest, but it is way different.
Sure.
But like Monopoly, I mean, it's...
Well, maybe a bit its time. I don't know that we need another roll and move game that has free parking.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. The only thing I could really think of to make a game classic is just, I guess, timelessness.
Yeah. It has to be popular among a lot of people as well.
Right. So you take games like Catan and Ticket to Ride and stuff like that. And, surprisingly, we busted Catan out, about a month ago, and it's like,
yeah,
it kind of still holds up.
The game is still good for even now.
That's true. What other games do you think are going to be... Well,
Dominion.
Well, yeah. We'll get into that, actually.
Okay.
Let's say about other things. Did you have anything else on there that you're going to add to what you think makes the game classic?
Just like I said, it has to have popularity among a
vast,
big group of people.
I agree. And I think the reason it's popular is because I think the biggest thing is replayability.
Right.
Because, think about any game that's considered classic and has been around for a long time. Catan's replayability is high. Ticket to Ride's super high. And I think a lot of those have like a simplistic rule set with it that has like a little bit of depth to it, kind of like a chess type of thing.
Right.
It's easy to learn, hard to master kind of deal.
Right.
Sure.
Not that Ticket to Ride is chess, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. It's not too simple, but it has a little bit of immediateness there to make it a good game.
Yeah. So going with those two things, though, what do you think about Splendor? Do you think that's going to be a classic? I think
it might be close, but I don't think it has the uniqueness or the good theme on it or anything like that. So is it going to be classic? Is it going to be around in 20 years?
It's going to be around for a while, but you think it'll dip off eventually?
I would say so.
Yeah. And, Target with what they're doing now is probably going to have a big hand in what could become the next, kind of classic.
That's true. And I don't think Splendor's in Target.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. It probably should be.
It is a good game.
Because even if you get outside of the board gaming community, even though it is big, I don't know if it's quite big enough to take over get into pop culture. Because I think a classic has to be part of your pop culture in a sense.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, I wonder if like any themed games would ever be considered classic. You know what I mean? Like one that has like an IP.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Firefly. I don't think Firefly is going to be a classic, even though it's fun. but you know what I mean? Like I can't think of any old games that are themed out with an IP that's classic at this point.
No, because a lot of the IP games aren't very good.
You can't count Clue because they made a movie out of it.
You know, I guess the problem is IPs are generational, and it kind of stops you from having that timeless aspect to it. So that could be a problem. Unless like Star Wars would be the only thing that has bridged generations.
Oh, that's true.
Or Star Trek. You know, there are certain things that do bridge generations, but it would have to have that to stay up.
Yeah. Well, Eric, you weren't on this first episode, so we're going to ask you this.
Sure.
Why do you think? I mean, I don't even remember if you listened to the first episode or if it's been that long.
Yeah, I heard it. I mean, it's been a while back ago, obviously, but.
So what do you think about Monopoly? Like, do you think it deserves the title of being classic? Do you think it deserves to be a classic to continue being sold?
Well, it does continue to sell a lot, probably more than we even think. And there is all kinds of spin-offs on it, you know, Dogopoly and Louisville-opoly and whatnot. So the gameplay's there. People still want to play it, so it's still relevant. So I do think it.
Do you think actually people are playing those copies though?
Oh yeah,
I think they're birthday and Christmas presents, and that's it.
I still know people that still play it.
Like play the base game or play these Opoly versions.
Base game.
Oh, that's fair. I mean, I guess I do know some people that play Monopoly, but they probably don't play it right.
They still play like Trouble in Emily's school.
Do they play Double Trouble?
Probably not. They stick with the classics.
Hey, Double Trouble was fun. I don't know if it was really good, but I don't know. Out of all those, Matt, what are some of the classic games that you actually enjoy still?
You know, I don't. I think that I don't know. I liked more obscure stuff. Like Tripoli was a game I liked a lot, but I think it's because you use cards and it had like betting and stuff like that.
I don't know if I've ever played that.
Yeah, it's not like super popular, but it's a game I used to like. It kind of had a rummy feel to it. You're trying to get sets and stuff, and you're betting on spots. Man, something that.
What about Scrabble?
I mean, I don't mind Scrabble, but I don't think I own a copy of it. Oh. I've played it.
I used to love Scrabble.
Words are friends.
Only thing that went wrong with that game is downtime and the AP. You know, I gotta look at my 7 letters. I have to find a word. I have to get at least 10 points.
Optimal, yeah, right. Optimal. Decisions.
So it's gonna take me 10 minutes.
That's why the asynchronous play of like the phones have really made that game good.
Right.
Because you're like, you know what?
Right. You just do it on your own time.
You do your turn. 3 days from now, I'll take my turn, and I don't even care.
Yeah, you know, the games I remember is like Guess Who. I loved Guess Who.
We played a good version of that, Eric. Remember?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it was good, but it was fun.
Right.
There's one more I was about to say that was a lot of fun that I still. Oh, Hungry Hippos, dude.
Yeah.
Gotta love some Hungry Hippos.
Dude, that's my childhood right there. Hungry Hippos and Fireball Island.
Yeah.
And Go to Jail, which Half Price has for $20. No.
Go to jail. Don't go to jail?
Or don't go to jail, yeah.
$20?
Yeah, that's not worth it.
Wow. I like Stratego.
Oh, Stratego.
Fun.
Yeah, I played a lot of that when I was a kid.
I did too.
Yeah, they definitely re-brought that out many times. And they've added a couple of rules here and there to change it up a little bit.
Yeah, I had a version. I forgot what version I had, but they gave special ability. That's what it was.
Yeah.
They gave special abilities to some of the units.
Yeah. See, Stratego is a game that fulfills the thing I was talking about with replayability. I mean, because you're like, oh, you did not beat me. All right, set him back up. You know what I mean?
And it has you set up your own board or your own side.
Yeah.
You change it around. You know, I might put my bombs over here, and you might think I'm hiding my flag behind my bombs, but my bombs is really over here.
Yeah. It's interesting because all these games that are classic don't have a lot of rules to them, and they have a lot of replayability. So I'm wondering if it's going to change a little bit with this, you know, designer games. You know, because right now we're talking about classics from the 50s and 60s and 70s or whatever. That's on quite a bit of time, 30 years or whatever. I mean, we're kind of, if you talk about like Catan, it's been at what, 99 or something? What year did it come out?
Quite a bit ago.
Good question.
I'll look it up while you.
You know, and something funny you bring up is the fact that Monopoly didn't have much, you know, competition. Now there is so much competition with all these other games. So I think it's just going to be harder for a certain game to grasp on.
95.
95, yeah.
Wow, that is literally like 23 years.
Wow.
So it makes sense that it's becoming a classic, because I bet if we went through and looked at other games that came out in 95,
Yeah, they're unknown.
probably not a lot of
Or a
those.
lot of them,
Yeah.
right.
But I mean, it's interesting because you're like the criteria that made a game a classic back then is way different than now. And I think a lot of it, like you said, or like we were talking, is the availability, you know, what type of games were out at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not many companies had a lot of money to advertise and things like that. So it was a lot of word of mouth,
Right.
you know, because there were a lot of games out there, you know, like Hero Quest. I mean, that's a classic, but I feel like it's more of a cult classic
Right.
than actually a classic, because you're not going to go and find somebody
A lot of people know it, but they haven't played it.
or right.
You know,
Or a subsect of people have known it, or
Yeah, it's a classic, but yeah, I think it's more of a cult classic status at this point. But I don't know. It's interesting. I think there's, you're right. There's so much competition on games now that it's going to be really tough to see what actually gets held back as a classic, you know, 20, 30 years from now.
and I was going to say it'll be interesting in about 20 years.
Yeah.
Just to see if any of these games have kind of held up and, you know,
I
stuck
think
around.
Catan will be out and still played in 20 years.
Oh, yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yeah, and Dominion.
Yeah.
Right. I still think Dominion is more of it's a classic, but it's still a classic within the gamer community.
Mhm.
Whereas Catan is reaching, I mean, you got football teams playing Catan before they play
Oh,
football
really?
games. What was
Yeah.
it, the Vikings?
No, it was the Green Bay Packers.
There you
Yeah.
go.
The offensive line
Yeah.
would play it. Yeah.
I thought I knew what I was talking about, but I was wrong.
You were close.
You were
same
close, right.
same division?
Okay. Yeah, there you go. They're same side of the U.S., right?
They're next to each other, right?
Yeah, there we go.
Minnesota next to Wisconsin. Is that correct? Geography?
Geography.
Yeah, sure.
Well, anyway, I don't really have much else to say about this, but it is definitely interesting. You got anything else to add, Eric?
No, that was it for me.
Matt, what about you?
No, I said my piece.
All right. Well, anyway, that's what makes a game a classic. We'd love to hear what you think makes a game a classic. Email us at MeepleCore@gmail.com.